Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Preeti Kaur. Coming up in the next 30 minutes, Supreme Court upholds abrogation of Article 370, says bifurcation of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh is valid. Directs Election Commission of India to conduct elections by September 30th, 2024. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi launches Viksit Bharat at 2047, Voice of Youth. Netanyahu calls on Hamas terrorists to surrender now as Israeli tanks reach center of Khan Yunis. EU considers crackdown on Hamas's finances. And Sports Minister Anurag Singh Thakur to inaugurate the grand opening ceremony of inaugural edition of Khelo India Para Games at New Delhi's Aichi Stadium. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi launched the Viksit Bharat 2047 Voice of Youth today via video conferencing. The Viksit Bharat at 2047 Voice of Youth is a platform for the youth of the country to actively engage and contribute in the journey towards a developed India. The Prime Minister also addressed the Vice Chancellors of the universities, heads of institutes and faculty members in workshops held at Raj Bhavans across the country.
माय गॉव के अंदर विकसित भारत @2047 सेक्शन लॉन्च हुआ है। इसमें विकसित भारत के विजन के लिए आइडियाज का एक सेक्शन है और क्योंकि आइडिया की शुरुआत ही आई से होती है, इसलिए इसमें ऐसे आइडिया चाहिए जिसमें वर्णन हो कि मैं स्वयं भी क्या कर सकता हूं। और आइडिया में जैसे आई सबसे पहले है, इंडिया में भी आई सबसे पहले है। यानी अगर हमें सफलता पानी है, लक्ष्यों की प्राप्ति करनी है, उचित परिणाम लाना है, तो स्वयं के आय से ही शुरू होता है। ऑनलाइन आइडियाज के पोर्टल पर 5 अलग अलग थीम्स पर सुझाव दिए जा सकते हैं। सबसे बेहतरीन 10 सुझावों के लिए पुरस्कार की भी व्यवस्था की गई है। साथियों, जब मैं सुझावों की बात करता हूं तो आपके सामने खुला आसमान है। हमें देश में एक ऐसी अमृत पीढ़ी को तैयार करना है जो आने वाले वर्षों में देश की कर्णधार बनेगी, जो देश को नेतृत्व और दिशा देगी। हमें देश के एक ऐसी नौजवान पौध को तैयार करना है जो देश हित को सर्वोपरि रखते, जो अपने कर्तव्यों को सर्वोपरि रखें। हमें सिर्फ शिक्षा और कौशल तक ही सीमित नहीं रहना है। एक नागरिक के तौर पर 2400 घंटे देश के नागरिक कैसे सजग रहें, इस दिशा में भी प्रयास बढ़ाने आवश्यक है।
A 5-judge constitution bench of the Supreme Court of India pronounced its verdict on a batch of petitions challenging the abrogation of Article 370 and the reorganization of the state into union territories of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. India's Chief Justice of India said that Jammu and Kashmir does not hold any internal sovereignty after accession to India in October 1947. He also said that the Article 370 is a temporary provision, an interim arrangement. He further said that use of president power was not nullified and that the Supreme Court cannot sit over president's decision. The Supreme Court holds that the power of the president to issue a notification that Article 370 ceases to exist subsists even after the dissolution of the J&K Constituent Assembly. The court upholds abrogation of Article 370 in Jammu and Kashmir constitutionally valid, and has directed the Election Commission of India to conduct elections to the Legislative Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir by 30th of September 2024. The Supreme Court has asked centre submission on the restoration of statehood of Jammu and Kashmir. The court also upholds the reorganization of Ladakh as a union territory.
Article 370 was intended to be a temporary provision. As a corollary, there was a mechanism to bring the whole arrangement to an end. The effect of the power under Article 373, once exercised, would be that the article shall cease to be operative. In other words, the mechanism was meant to de-recognize the state's internal sovereignty. Thus, the exercise of power under Article 373 meant that for purposes of the Constitution of India, only the Constitution of India would apply to the Jammu and Kashmir, and not any other constitution, that is the Constitution of Jammu and Kashmir.
The Apex Court has reserved the judgment on September 5th after a 16-day argument session. The central government had said that the abrogation of Article 370 was temporary and is aligned with the legal framework. To spell out more, our correspondent Vikas Sarthi is joining us. Vikas, good afternoon. Vikas, am I audible? Help us understand the Supreme Court's observations, because we've given a broad outline of the observations of the Supreme Court. Help us understand it better.
Right, Preeti. So the first most important observation of the Supreme Court, or the part of the judgment of the Supreme Court, is that Article 370 was a temporary provision. The main argument before the Supreme Court was that whether it is a temporary provision or it is a permanent provision. Now, Supreme Court, after going through the historical facts, the language of the legislation, and the material provided by the Union government, it is of the opinion that that Article 370 was a temporary provision, and it was brought to fill the gaps on the area where the Constitution of India doesn't provide those issues which were relevant for the state, but were not part of our Constitution. So that was an exercise to fill those gaps, and once this exercise had been done, the Article 370 has served its purpose. It was the main argument of the centre that after the formation of Constitution of Jammu and Kashmir in 1957, the work of the functioning of the Constituent Assembly was over, and it was dissolved. And since it is a temporary provision, whatever decision has been taken by the government in August 2019 is completely constitutional and doesn't violate any provision of Indian Constitution. So the most important part is that Supreme Court has declared that it is a temporary provision. Apart from it, court has also held that the constitution orders issued by President of India, those orders were 272 and 273. Those orders were completely in line with the provision of the Constitution of India and doesn't violate any provision. That was another important issue which has been decided by the Constitution bench. Apart from it, court has also said that it doesn't feel fit to go into the further arguments whether the Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act was constitutional or not. It has been decided that as far as the power of Parliament or the power of the Union government is concerned, whatever has been provided in Article 1 and Article 3, which relates to the change in the area of a particular state, formation of a new state, or merger of two states, those powers those powers lie within the Parliament of India, and whatever decision has been taken on in August 2019 doesn't violate provisions of Article 1 and Article 3. These two articles are equally applicable on the Jammu and Kashmir as it is applicable to any part of the country or any other state. So court has upheld that bifurcation of the state was also valid. There was no irregularity on that issue also.
Vikas, now this verdict coming in from the Supreme Court is binding, but for the benefit of our viewers, get us a quick backgrounder on the petitions, and now what next for the petitioners?
Right, Preeti. So the issue which was raised by the petitioner first is that they were of the view that Article 370 is a permanent article, and to change any kind of nature of Jammu and Kashmir as a state and as Constitution of Jammu and Kashmir, first there must be a constituent assembly in Jammu and Kashmir. So that was the main argument of the petitioners. They said that only a constituent assembly of the state can take a decision on revocation or abrogation of Article 370. Though the centre was of the view that in Article 370, subclause 3 gives ample power to the President of India to take such a decision. That was the main issue. So the court was of the opinion that it is correct, whatever stand taken by the centre is correct, that 370 was a temporary provision, and once the Jammu and Kashmir constitution was made, it became irrelevant. Other than that, the petitioner were of the view that they were in a kind of impression that Jammu and Kashmir has a kind of sovereignty within the Union of India. Court has made it clear that Jammu and Kashmir doesn't have any kind of separate sovereignty. Neither any law in Jammu and Kashmir declares it, and if we speak about the erstwhile Jammu and Kashmir constitution, it also doesn't speak about any kind of sovereignty. That constitution was made just to fill the gaps, to fill those areas which were not there, to decide what should be the kind of legislation on those aspects, and to say that state has any kind of sovereignty, it is completely wrong, it is incorrect. Court has also held that. Apart from it, petitioner also argued that if constituent assembly was not there, this kind of decision should be taken by the legislative assembly. We are aware that when this decision was taken, the Jammu and Kashmir assembly was under president rule. So centre was of the view that after the amendments by the presidential order of number 272 and 273, that power now lies in the governor of the state. So governor of state represents the Jammu and Kashmir state, and whatever decision was expected from the state assembly or constituent assembly of Jammu and Kashmir, governor has power to take any kind of decision on those aspects. So governor represents the state of Jammu and Kashmir. It has been decided. The Supreme Court is also of the view that whatever amendments which were brought by the Constitution Order number 272 and 273, which says that which also reflects that the governor can take any decision on part of the legislative assembly when there are no members in the assembly, was completely right. There was no constitutional irregularity or unconstitutional with respect to that aspect also. So whatever arguments which were placed by the petitioners, Supreme Court has gone into all those issues, all those arguments, and have given a detailed judgment. There were different judgments by the judges, but they have same opinion. The language was different, but the findings were the same. And now it has been declared by the 5-judge Constitution Bench the Article 370 was a temporary provision. So whatever bills have been brought by the Union of India after the abrogation of Article 370 all remain intact. There is no question of raising issue with respect to legality of those bills as well. We have seen that several bills have been brought since the abrogation of Article 370. And Preeti, before the abrogation, the provision was that except for the issues related to the foreign affairs, defense and communications, the State Assembly have rights on all other issues, and whenever the Union of India brings a legislation, it was applicable on all states except the Jammu and Kashmir. So what was the provision? That Jammu and Kashmir Assembly used to bring separate legislation with similar language, with similar provisions, and those bills were used to pass by the assembly. Now the issue is that assembly had a prerogative to decide which bills it is going to bring in assembly and which bill it will not place in the assembly. So that inconsistency has been removed after the abrogation of Article 370. Now each and every bill which will be passed by the parliament will automatically be applied on Jammu and Kashmir as well.
All right, so this is what I was about to ask you next, Vikas. Now that you've told us, and the Supreme Court has also directed the Election Commission to hold elections by September next year, you've explained to us, but I would would want you to spell out more details as to how far will it benefit the state of Jammu and Kashmir, because we've seen that the little doubt of it being a temporary resolution has now been annulled, has now been held void by the Supreme Court. And how will it help Jammu and Kashmir, Ladakh, and also the nation as a whole?
Exactly, Preeti. First of all, recently the centre has brought a bill which relates to the providing reservation to scheduled tribe community in Jammu and Kashmir. We are aware that there is a significant number of tribal communities in Jammu particularly. They were not given reservation for 70 years, for 7 decades. Why? Because the Jammu and Kashmir Assembly didn't pass bills related to reservation for scheduled tribe community. After that, now the centre has brought those bills which will provide reservation for scheduled tribe community, for economically and culturally backward people. So this will certainly benefit people, people of the valley. Apart from it, the issue which was raised before the Supreme Court was that there is no assembly, peoples are not being represented by their voters. So it has already been made it clear by the centre that now there will be a legislative assembly, though the Jammu and Kashmir will remain a union territory, but it will have a legislative assembly. People will have their own representatives in their assembly. It will have similar powers which we have seen in the other union territories with assembly. So as far as the full statehood or complete statehood is concerned, Supreme Court certainly told the centre and the Solicitor General to look into the issue that when can be full statehood be again granted to the Jammu and Kashmir. But centre has already said that it is going to give full statehood to Jammu and Kashmir in very near future, but when it will be given, it is not yet has been decided. It is completely executive decision, and whenever it is suitable, the Union of India will take a decision on that. But as far as the representation of people is concerned, now Jammu and Kashmir Union Territory has its own assembly, and we will see that in fact the election may take place before September 2024. This court has said that by 30th September 2024 there must be an assembly. That was also a big issue before the Supreme Court, and court has not passed any particular order or direction, but has asked Election Commission to ensure that election shall be held by September 2024.
All right, Vikas, even as we speak, we are getting the latest visuals for our viewers from Jammu and Kashmir, where we see the people there celebrating and endorsing the verdict of the Supreme Court. Thank you so much, Vikas, for joining in with those details and those pointers. So that was our correspondent Vikas Sarthi spelling out more details on the breaking news coming in this hour, wherein the Supreme Court, a 5-judge constitution bench of the Supreme Court, has pronounced its verdict on the batch of petitions with regarding the that was in fact challenging the abrogation of Article 370 in Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. Let's get to other updates that we are following this hour. On the first day of the second week of the winter session of Parliament, important legislative businesses have been listed for discussion in both the houses. In the Lok Sabha, matters of urgent public importance are being raised. In the upper house of Parliament, matters were raised with the permission of the chair. Two crucial bills which got the nod of Lok Sabha, that is the lower house of the Parliament, on December 6th, will be introduced in the upper house later today. We're heading for a short break. You're watching DD India Live, but when we come back after the break, we tell you how Philippines summons China's ambassador as it calls aggressive actions in South China see a serious escalation. US calls on Beijing to refrain.
the story of Dal Lake of Naya Kashmir.
मैं बड़ी होकर ऑफिसर बनने चाहती हूँ, दूसरी बात मैं पुलिस बननी चाहती हूँ।
बहुत काम आया, उसका टूरिस्ट आया, उसका काम बहुत जलता है।
यहाँ पे तो अभी बहुत कुछ बदला है। यहाँ का जो अभी गवर्नमेंट्स है, उन लोगों ने बहुत कुछ किया है यहाँ पे। 2-3 सालों से यहाँ पे बहुत टूरिज्म आ रहा है।
Has the post Article 370 abrogation change, the impact of it also percolated when it comes to the local fishing community?
हर एक यहाँ पे ₹10 कमा रहा है।
यहाँ पर लोग आते हैं घूमने के लिए, फिर वो खरीदारी करते हैं शॉल्स, पेपर मशी, अखरोट लकड़ का, क्योंकि यहाँ भी लोग है ना, रोजी इनकी भी चलती है यहाँ से।
After 38 years, I have seen tremendous change in this place.
हमारा कश्मीर जो है सबसे खूबसूरत डल लेक, शांति है यहाँ पे।
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India Live. Let's get you more international updates. The Philippines has summoned China's ambassador to Manila over sea confrontations. The move comes as Philippines President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. accused China of aggressive action against its vessels and personnel over the weekend in the South China Sea. Marcos said that the presence of Chinese Coast Guard vessels and maritime militia in his country's waters is illegal, and their dangerous actions against Filipinos is an outright and blatant violation of international law. Meanwhile, the United States has called out China for its actions in the disputed South China Sea, saying it is undermining regional stability. And results of the Hong Kong's District Council ordinary election came out on Monday, with 176 district committees, constituency councillors and 88 geographical constituency councillors getting elected. Hong Kong's Patriots-only district election held amid tight security had witnessed a record low voter turnout of 27.5%, lesser than the 35.8% turnout of 1999, with many voters expressing disdain and called it an undemocratic poll since it barred opposition Democrats and Liberals from participating. Javier Milei, a renowned libertarian economist, was sworn in as the president of Argentina on Sunday. Milei registered a landslide victory following people's fury over the country's economic crisis. In his first speech after the swearing-in ceremony, Milei said that the road to rebuilding the country has begun and his predecessors had left the country without funds and on a path to hyperinflation. As Israel moves forward with its ground operations in Gaza, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that dozens of Hamas fighters had surrendered, encouraging more of them to do so.
In the past few days, dozens of Hamas terrorists have surrendered to our forces. They are laying down their weapons and turning themselves into our heroic soldiers. This will take time. The war is still ongoing, but it is the beginning of the end of Hamas. I say to the Hamas terrorists, it's over. Don't die for sin war. Surrender now.
Russia said that its forces intercepted Ukrainian rockets on Sunday, while Ukraine claimed its armed forces hit multiple Russian targets, including an ammunition depot. Russia's defense ministry said that Russian forces repelled many Ukrainian offensives in Donetsk, Liman and Kupiansk and attacked many Ukrainian targets. On the same day, the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine said that Ukrainian forces have continued to carry out strikes against Russian troops on the left bank of the Dnipro River. British Prime Minister Rishi Sonak faces the most dangerous moment of his premiership this week when he is due to appear before a COVID-19 inquiry, including other issues. Sonak will appear at the official COVID-19 inquiry on Monday for a day-long hearing examining his role in response to the pandemic. This comes ahead of Tuesday's vote in Parliament on his plan to revive a policy to send asylum seekers to Rwanda. Sonak, the then finance minister, was accused of saying the government should just let people die rather than impose a lockdown because he was worried about the impact on the economy. UN Climate Chief Simon Stiell has urged countries to overcome tactical blockages at the COP28 summit to address climate change. He emphasized the need for a new draft text for a potential agreement and warned that backing away from high ambitions will have dire consequences. The talks in Dubai have revealed global divisions over the role of oil, gas and coal, hindering efforts to reach a deal before the summit's end on December 12th.
So that leaves us with the question, how do we get from here a meaningful deal? First, clear the unnecessary tactical blockades out of the way, and there have been many along this journey. The global stocktake needs to help all countries get out of this mess. Any strategic landmines that blow it up for one, blow it up for all. The world is watching, as are 4,000 members of the global media and thousands of observers here in Dubai. There is nowhere to hide. Second, I urge negotiators to reject incrementalism.
Let's now take a look at other stories making it to the headlines from across the world. At least 570 faculty members at Harvard University signed a petition asking school administrators to not give in to political pressure to fire the school's president over her congressional testimony about anti-Semitism on campus. Pressure has hiked on University President Claudine Gay after the recent resignation of University of Pennsylvania President Liz Magill. China's capital city, Beijing, witnessed its first snowfall of the year. However, heavy snowing through the night led to several disruptions in transportation systems. Schools were also closed in different areas. And members of the Jewish community in Paris celebrated the fourth day of Hanukkah near the Eiffel Tower on Sunday. The event was organized by Lubavitch Group. A giant menorah was lit up and Jewish musicians performed at Champs de Mars Park. France is home to Europe's largest Jewish and Muslim communities. A quick look at sports now. India's Sports Minister Anurag Singh Thakur inaugurates the first ever Khelo India Para Games on Monday in New Delhi, showcasing the government's commitment towards inclusivity in sports. Over 1,400 participants from across 32 states and union territories are expected to participate in the maiden Khelo India Para Games. Para-athletes will vie for honours in 7 disciplines, including athletics, shooting, archery, football, badminton, table tennis and weightlifting. The Khelo India Para Games promises to be a game changer for para sports in the country. The event signifies a significant step towards making sports more inclusive and diverse. The eagerly anticipated inaugural edition of Khelo India Para Games has kicked off in Delhi on Sunday. That's it in this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and also Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Preeti Kaur signing off, and from all of us in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.